This audiobook begins in quiet despair, naming the emptiness no one talks about, and steadily applies pressure through truth, contrast, and responsibility. Tension builds as comfort is exposed and discipline is reintroduced, leading to a breakthrough where discomfort becomes fuel instead of fear. The journey ends in clarity and earned confidence, a transformation from passive consumption to deliberate creation. What starts as emptiness resolves into inner solidity, a life no longer numb, but full, intentional, and self-directed. You wake up, check your phone, move through your day, and nothing is technically wrong. Bills paid, messages answered, life looks stable, and yet something inside you feels hollow, quiet, unfinished. That feeling follows you through conversations, through work, through nights when the room is silent. You don't talk about it because you can't explain it. You don't post about it because it doesn't look dramatic. But it's there, persistent, heavy, real. This is the quiet emptiness, the kind that survives success, the kind that hides behind routines and smiles, the kind that whispers when the world finally shuts up. You were told that comfort would feel like arrival, that stability would feel like peace. Instead, it feels like something is missing. Not on the outside, on the inside, and the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes. You start telling yourself you should be grateful. Other people have it worse, your life looks fine. But emptiness doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't disappear because you list blessings. It grows when you silence it. This isn't ingratitude, it's misalignment, a signal you have been taught to suppress instead of understand. Modern life is designed to keep you occupied, not fulfilled. Noise everywhere, screens everywhere, endless stimulation to prevent you from asking dangerous questions. Questions like why you feel disconnected from your own days. Questions like when you stopped feeling driven, hungry, alive. Distraction keeps you comfortable, but comfort is not the same as meaning. You weren't built just to coast. You weren't built to optimize convenience and die entertained. Somewhere along the way, survival replaced purpose. Ease replaced challenge. And without challenge, something essential inside you began to starve. The emptiness you feel is not weakness. It's unmet potential pressing against the walls of a safe life. Think about it. The moments you felt most alive were rarely easy. They demanded something from you. Focus, effort, risk, responsibility, growth. Now compare that to days filled with scrolling, numbing routines, and shallow rewards. The contrast explains the emptiness. Your nervous system knows the difference between comfort and fulfillment, even when your mind tries to justify the gap. This is where most people turn away. They drown the signal in more noise, more consumption, more distraction. They mistake peace for sedation. But you're here because something in you refused to shut down completely. Something in you knows this hollow feeling is not an ending. It's an invitation. Emptiness is not a diagnosis. It's a direction. It points toward a life that asks more of you and gives more back. A life with structure, friction, and purpose. A life where your days mean something because you demanded meaning from them. The discomfort you feel is not telling you to escape. It's telling you to engage. You don't need a new personality. You don't need to burn everything down. You need to listen. To stop anesthetizing yourself with convenience and start asking what kind of person this life is shaping you into. The question is no longer why you feel empty. The real question is what you're going to do about it. Because this emptiness will not leave on its own. It will either be transformed into drive or it will calcify into regret. Those are the options. And the moment you stop running from the feeling is the moment your real life begins. This is not where you fall apart. This is where you wake up. You are standing at a threshold whether you admit it or not. One path keeps everything looking fine while slowly draining you from the inside. The other path demands effort, discipline, and honesty, but it gives you weight, direction, and self-respect. No one announces this moment for you. It arrives quietly, disguised as dissatisfaction. The choice is not dramatic, but it is decisive. You can keep numbing the signal, or you can treat it as a call to grow stronger. And growth always begins with awareness, followed by action, repeated daily, without applause. This emptiness is the beginning of your education. It strips away illusions and exposes what comfort has been costing you. Pay attention now. Your future discipline, focus, and meaning depend on whether you listen here at the very start. What comes next will challenge the habits that keep you comfortable and confront the patterns you've protected. Stay present. Stay honest. The emptiness you feel is narrowing your options and sharpening your awareness. If you don't turn away, it will lead you somewhere real. Not toward ease, but toward effort. Not toward noise, but toward clarity. This is where the real work begins. Everything ahead builds from this moment of recognition and refusal to keep living asleep when you know something inside you demands more, and you finally decide to answer that demand fully. Comfort didn't arrive violently. It arrived quietly. It slipped into your life disguised as progress, as safety, as reward. Softer beds, faster food, endless entertainment, fewer reasons to struggle, and at first it felt like winning. Life stopped demanding so much from you. You stopped feeling pressure. You stopped feeling resistance. But you also stopped feeling sharp, alive, awake. Comfort didn't destroy you overnight. It slowly replaced the parts of you that once reached forward. Modern comfort promises peace but delivers sedation. It keeps you warm, fed, entertained, and busy, yet strangely dissatisfied. You're not exhausted from effort, you're exhausted from stimulation. Your days are full, but they're not meaningful. There's no edge to them, no demand, no urgency, just repetition. Comfort gives you everything except the one thing you actually need, a reason to rise. Look at how your life is structured. Everything is optimized to remove friction. One click replaces effort. One swipe replaces patience. One notification replaces silence. You rarely have to wait, struggle, or endure. And because of that, you rarely have to grow. Growth requires resistance. Meaning requires effort. Comfort removes both, then wonders why you feel empty. Pleasure has become your pacifier. A reward system without achievement. Dopamine without direction. It feels good briefly, then leaves you numb. So you reach for more. More content. More noise. More ease. But pleasure is not fulfillment. It never was. Fulfillment comes from becoming someone stronger than you were yesterday, not from consuming something easier than the day before. You start to notice the pattern. The more comfortable life becomes, the less present you feel inside it. The easier your routines get, the harder it is to feel proud of yourself. You're not suffering, but you're not satisfied. And that quiet dissatisfaction begins to harden into something sharper. Not sadness, frustration. A low, simmering anger you don't know where to place. You feel it when you catch yourself procrastinating again, when you numb another evening instead of building something, when you avoid discomfort even though you know it's costing you respect for yourself. That anger isn't random, it's self-awareness waking up. It's the part of you that remembers who you could be, watching you settle for less than your capacity. Comfort tells you that this is normal, that this is adulthood, that wanting more is unrealistic. But comfort always defends itself. It convinces you that stagnation is stability and that effort is unnecessary. What it doesn't tell you is the price. The price is your edge, your hunger, your sense of forward motion. Easy living creates empty living because nothing is being demanded of you. No discipline, no courage, no structure, no responsibility beyond maintenance. You wake up to preserve, not to build. You move through days designed to pass, not to matter. And deep down, you know the difference. The human system is not built for constant ease. It's built to adapt, to overcome, to struggle forward. When you remove struggle entirely, the system turns inward. Energy becomes anxiety. Potential becomes restlessness. Drive becomes irritation. You're not broken, you're under-challenged. This is why comfort never satisfies. It feeds the body while starving the identity. It keeps you safe while making you small. It removes pain but also removes pride. And pride doesn't come from what you consume. It comes from what you endure, what you build, what you carry. At some point, the calm dissatisfaction turns into a clear realization. You feel it in moments of honesty. Comfort didn't just happen to you. You accepted it. You chose ease over effort, one decision at a time. And the emptiness you feel now is not mysterious. It's engineered by a life without friction. This realization hurts, but it also empowers. Because if emptiness is designed, it can be redesigned. If comfort drained meaning, then challenge can restore it. Not chaos, not suffering for its own sake, but deliberate difficulty, chosen resistance, purposeful effort. The anger you feel is not something to suppress, it's something to sharpen. It's telling you that comfort has overstayed its welcome. That safety without growth is a slow form of decay. That ease without meaning is not peace, it's stagnation. You don't need to escape your life, you need to reintroduce demand into it. Friction, standards, structure, things that require you to show up fully instead of drifting. Comfort told you to relax. Meaning will ask you to engage. This is the turning point. The moment you stop asking why you feel empty and start seeing how your environment has been shaping you. The emptiness isn't random, it's the predictable result of a life that removed everything that once forced you to rise. And once you see that clearly, comfort loses its authority. Because what comes next is not about avoiding pain, it's about reclaiming aliveness. Chapter 2, the hunger you've been distracting yourself from. There is a hunger inside you that hasn't disappeared. It has been buried. Buried under noise, stimulation, schedules, and excuses. You feel it in quiet moments, then rush to drown it out. Scroll, refresh, consume. Anything but sit with the feeling. That hunger is not weakness. It is not dissatisfaction with life. It is the ancient need to struggle for something that matters. When that need goes unanswered, it doesn't die. It turns into restlessness, anxiety, and a constant urge to escape yourself. You keep running because stopping would force you to listen to what you have avoided facing fully. Distraction has become your shield, not protection, but avoidance. Every notification saves you from silence. Every task saves you from reflection. Busyness feels productive, but it's often just motion without direction. You tell yourself you're tired, but you're not tired from effort. You're tired from running. Running from questions you don't want to answer. Questions about who you're becoming, what you're building, and whether this version of your life deserves your energy. Those questions grow louder the longer you avoid meeting them directly. They wait patiently until distraction finally fails you and leaves you alone with yourself again tonight. Avoidance keeps you comfortable, but it keeps you weak. It trades short-term relief for long-term emptiness. Power, real power, requires awareness. Awareness demands stillness. And stillness is what you've been trained to fear. Silence exposes you. It removes the noise you hide behind. When nothing is playing and nothing is scrolling, you are left with yourself. That moment is uncomfortable because it tells the truth. And the truth is, you want more than ease. You feel it but rarely admit it without distraction numbing the signal. Awareness hurts first, then strengthens you permanently when you stop resisting it fully now. The hunger you feel is not for pleasure, it's for resistance, for weight, for something that pushes back when you push forward. Humans don't feel fulfilled by comfort. They feel fulfilled by effort aligned with meaning. Without something to struggle toward, your energy turns inward and starts consuming you. That's why distraction feels necessary. It keeps the pressure from building. But pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is potential waiting for direction. When denied expression, it mutates into frustration and self-doubt. That cycle repeats until you choose effort over escape consciously again and again without awareness, growth, or meaning attached. Look closely at how often you reach for distraction the moment discomfort appears. A pause feels dangerous. Silence feels heavy. Stillness feels like failure. But stillness is not collapse. It is confrontation. It forces you to feel the hunger fully instead of numbing it halfway. And when you finally feel it, you realize it isn't asking you to consume more. It's asking you to commit to something harder. Something that demands discipline, patience, and responsibility from you daily. That realization is unsettling because it removes your favorite escape routes permanently and exposes your capacity to endure, grow, and lead yourself. Distraction keeps you passive. Awareness makes you accountable. Once you see clearly, you can't unsee. You can't pretend you're fine when you're avoiding your own potential. That's why awareness feels heavy at first. It puts responsibility back in your hands. Not responsibility for everything, but responsibility for yourself, for how you spend your time, for how you respond to discomfort, for whether you rise or retreat. That weight feels unfamiliar because comfort trained you to avoid it. But strength is built by carrying what others drop willingly every time they choose ease over effort, growth, and self-respect repeatedly over time. You don't need to eliminate distraction completely to change your life. You need to stop using it as anesthesia. There is a difference between rest and avoidance. Rest restores you. Avoidance erodes you. One prepares you for effort. The other steals your future silently. The hunger inside you will guide you if you let it, but it only speaks clearly when you slow down enough to hear. That means fewer escapes and more moments of deliberate presence daily. Presence is uncomfortable because it demands honesty without filters or distractions, forcing you to acknowledge what you truly want beneath the noise. When you stop running, the hunger doesn't attack you. It clarifies you. It shows you what matters by what hurts when neglected. It reveals the distance between who you are and who you could be. That distance feels painful, but it is measurable, and anything measurable can be closed with effort. Awareness turns vague dissatisfaction into a clear direction forward. This is where power begins replacing numbness and avoidance. You stop asking how to feel better and start asking how to become better through discipline, effort, honesty, and daily choices that align actions with values, direction, and long-term meaning ahead. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the space where truth surfaces. When you remove noise, you remove excuses. You see your patterns clearly, what you avoid, what you overconsume, what you postpone. This clarity can feel harsh, but it is clean. It cuts through confusion and gives you something solid to work with. From here, growth becomes possible. Without stillness, you repeat cycles blindly and call it normal life. With stillness, you interrupt patterns and choose differently, intentionally, consciously, and with confidence each time you resist distraction and sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, building strength, clarity, and trust. The hunger you've been avoiding is the same force that once drove you forward. It hasn't left. It's been waiting for you to stop numbing it and start listening. It doesn't want comfort. It wants commitment. It wants structure. It wants a direction worthy of your effort. And the moment you acknowledge it, something shifts inside you. You feel less scattered and more grounded in your own body. The noise loses power because you've reclaimed your attention slowly, deliberately, and without needing distraction to protect you from your own thoughts, emotions, and desires anymore today. Here, now, fully present. This is not a call to suffer endlessly. It's a call to choose meaningful struggle over meaningless ease. There is a difference. One builds you, the other drains you. Meaningful struggle sharpens focus, builds identity, and earns self-respect. It gives your days weight. Without it, time passes, but nothing accumulates inside you. The hunger you feel is asking for substance, not stimulation. It wants effort that leaves you tired but proud. That pride is quiet, internal, and deeply stabilizing, unlike fleeting pleasure that fades quickly and leaves you searching again for distraction, relief, or numbness tomorrow, next week, month, endlessly. Stillness is the doorway you've been avoiding, not because it harms you, but because it reveals you. When you stop filling every gap with noise, you begin to see clearly what matters, what doesn't, what must change. That clarity is the foundation of discipline. And discipline is how hunger turns into direction. Without discipline, awareness stays theoretical and life remains unchanged. With discipline, clarity becomes action repeated daily without negotiation over moods, excuses, or external conditions. Strengthening your sense of control, purpose, and internal stability each time you follow through deliberately, calmly, and without drama attached now, here, present, fully. This chapter ends with an invitation, not a command. Sit still, let the hunger speak. Don't rush to fix it or fill it, just listen. The discomfort you feel is the beginning of strength, not a sign of failure. In the silence, you'll meet yourself honestly for the first time in years. And once you do, there is no going back to sleep. What comes next requires courage, focus, and a willingness to change. Stillness has prepared you. The work is about to begin slowly, deliberately, without distraction, without escape, with awareness, responsibility, and commitment guiding every step forward. Now, Chapter 3. When you lost the edge. There was a version of you that moved differently. You remember it, even if you pretend you don't. You woke up with intention. Your thoughts felt sharper. Your body responded faster. You didn't need motivation because momentum carried you. Life felt heavier, but you felt stronger. You were closer to the surface of yourself, not buried under layers of comfort and distraction. That version of you wasn't perfect, but they were alive. And somewhere along the way, that edge dulled. It didn't vanish all at once. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become passive. It happened gradually. Small compromises, delayed goals, easier choices that felt harmless at the time. You told yourself you deserve rest. You told yourself you'd get back to it later. And later kept moving. Days blurred, weeks stacked. The sharpness softened. The fire dimmed. What you lost wasn't ambition. It was friction. And without friction, the edge disappears quietly. Think back to when effort felt normal, when challenge didn't scare you, when your self-respect came from showing up, not from being comfortable. You didn't need everything to feel good to move forward. You moved because forward was the point. That version of you trusted yourself, trusted that you could endure discomfort without breaking. That trust was built through action. And when the action stopped, the trust faded with it. Now compare that to how you feel today. More cautious, more tired, less willing to push. Not because you're incapable, but because you've trained yourself to avoid resistance. The edge is not lost potential. It's lost conditioning. Sharpness is maintained through use. When you stop demanding effort from yourself, you stop feeling capable of it. This isn't failure, it's neglect. The emptiness you feel now is not confusion, it's grief. Grief for a self you abandoned without a goodbye. Grief for the discipline you once had, the courage you once used, the standards you quietly lowered to make life easier. That grief doesn't scream, it aches. It shows up as dissatisfaction you can't explain and restlessness you can't shake. You feel it because something in you remembers who you were when you were engaged. You may tell yourself that life changed, that responsibilities increased, that circumstances shifted. All true, but many people carry weight without losing their edge. The difference is not pressure, it's posture. At some point, you stopped leaning into difficulty and started leaning away from it. That choice protected you from discomfort, but cost you intensity. And intensity is where meaning lives. The edge is not aggression, it's clarity. It's the willingness to face what needs to be faced without numbing, delaying, or outsourcing responsibility. When you had the edge, you didn't overthink every move. You trusted action more than analysis. Now you hesitate. You negotiate with yourself. You wait for conditions to feel right. That waiting is where sharpness goes to die. There is sadness in realizing this. Sit with it. Don't rush past it. You are allowed to mourn the version of you that tried harder, that cared more, that believed effort mattered. This grief is not weakness, it's honesty. And honesty is the gateway back to strength. You cannot reclaim what you pretend you didn't lose. The danger is not that you lost the edge. The danger is convincing yourself that you never had one, that this is just who you are now, that comfort has matured you. It hasn't. It has softened you. There is a difference. Maturity adds depth. Softness removes tension. You don't need to become younger. You need to become sharper again. Reclaiming the edge begins with admission. Admission that you've been avoiding the discomfort that once shaped you. Admission that ease has replaced effort as your default. Admission that the emptiness you feel is connected to that shift. This is not about blame, it's about ownership. You can't change what you won't name. Notice how your body responds when you remember that earlier version of yourself. There's a mix of regret and longing. That longing is important. It's not nostalgia, it's recognition. You are recognizing yourself. The edge was never external. It was a way of relating to effort, a refusal to drift, a commitment to engage even when it was hard. You didn't lose the edge because you failed. You lost it because you stopped using it. And anything unused weakens. This means something critical. What weakens can be strengthened again. Sharpness is not reserved for the young or the lucky. It's earned through repeated contact with resistance, the same way it always was. But before you sharpen, you must stop pretending. Stop pretending that numbness is peace. Stop pretending that comfort is alignment. Stop pretending that this restlessness will resolve itself. It won't. It will either push you back toward effort or sink into resentment. Those are the only outcomes. This chapter is not here to shame you. It's here to wake you, to show you that the emptiness you feel is not because you are incapable, broken, or lost. It's because you walked away from the version of yourself that demanded more. That version is not gone. It's waiting for you to return to the conditions that created it. You don't reclaim the edge with motivation. You reclaim it with small, deliberate acts of resistance. Showing up when you don't feel like it. Choosing effort when ease is available. Keeping promises to yourself even when no one is watching. That is how sharpness returns, quietly, gradually, honestly. But none of that happens until you admit the truth. You didn't just drift, you abandoned something valuable. And abandonment always leaves a mark. The mark you feel is emptiness. Not because you lack something new, but because you miss something old that mattered deeply. Admit it fully, without excuses, without drama, just truth. You let go of your edge, and now you are ready to earn it back. Chapter 4, The Lie of I Should Be Grateful. You tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way. You say it quietly, almost automatically. I should be grateful. Others have it worse. My life is fine. And every time you repeat it, something inside you tightens. Not because gratitude is wrong, but because you're using it as a gag. You're not practicing awareness. You're practicing suppression. You're trying to silence a truth by shaming yourself for feeling it. This lie is powerful because it sounds responsible, mature, rational. It keeps you from complaining. It keeps you from rocking the boat, but it also keeps you disconnected from yourself. Gratitude was never meant to erase pain. It was meant to clarify perspective. When you turn it into a weapon against your own emotions, it becomes a cage. There is a difference between gratitude and denial. Gratitude acknowledges what you have while still allowing you to admit what's missing. Denial pretends that having something means you're not allowed to want more. One expands you, the other shrinks you. And you've been shrinking yourself to stay socially acceptable, emotionally quiet, and internally conflicted. You learned early that dissatisfaction makes people uncomfortable, that saying you feel empty when your life looks good invites judgment. So you swallowed it. You smiled. You told yourself to be thankful. And slowly that unspoken guilt turned inward. You began to believe that feeling empty meant you were broken, spoiled, or ungrateful. None of that is true. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop wanting to grow. It doesn't mean you stop listening to discomfort. Real gratitude is honest. It doesn't flinch when truth shows up. It says, this is good and this is not enough. Both can exist. When you deny one to protect the other, you lose clarity. Forced positivity numbs you just as effectively as distraction. It keeps you from feeling pain, but it also keeps you from feeling drive. You don't need to punish yourself for feeling restless. Restlessness is not a moral failure. It's feedback. And feedback is only useful when you allow yourself to receive it without judgment. This is where relief begins. Not in fixing anything yet, just in telling the truth without apology. You can appreciate your life and still admit it's misaligned. You can be grateful and still feel called towards something harder. These are not contradictions. They are signals of maturity. You are not weak for feeling empty. You are aware. Weakness would be numbing it until years pass and resentment sets in. Awareness is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. Once you admit the truth, you can't hide behind guilt anymore. You can't say I shouldn't feel this way. You can only ask what it's pointing you toward. This is where responsibility enters. not blame. Responsibility. Responsibility means you stop arguing with reality and start working with it. You acknowledge the pain without dramatizing it. You don't wallow, you don't indulge. You observe, you learn, you decide. Gratitude as suppression keeps you passive. Gratitude as awareness keeps you grounded. One tells you to sit down and be quiet. The other tells you to stand up and be intentional. When you let go of the lie, you feel something shift. The guilt loosens. The pressure becomes direction instead of shame. You don't owe the world silence. You owe yourself honesty. And honesty doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you capable of change. This chapter is the line you cross when you stop minimizing your inner life and start taking it seriously. Acknowledging pain is not the end. It's the starting line. From here, you stop asking permission to want more. You stop apologizing for your hunger. You stop hiding behind gratitude and start using it as a foundation instead of a ceiling. You are allowed to feel what you feel. The responsibility now is what you do next. Chapter 5, Comfort is the New Cage. Comfort is no longer harmless. It's not neutral. It's not a reward you earned and now deserve indefinitely. Comfort has become the most effective cage ever built because it doesn't look like one. There are no bars, no locks, no guards, just ease. And ease slowly convinces you that nothing more is required of you. That belief is what erodes you. At first, comfort feels like relief. You tell yourself you've worked hard enough, that you've struggled enough, that now it's time to relax. And for a moment, that's true. Rest is necessary. Recovery matters. But comfort was never meant to become a lifestyle. When rest turns permanent, it stops restoring you and starts weakening you. Comfort dulls your urgency. It smooths the sharp edges that once kept you alert. When everything is easy, nothing feels important. When nothing feels important, you stop showing up fully. You go through the motions. You maintain instead of build. You preserve instead of expand. And over time, you forget what it feels like to demand something real from yourself. This is how discipline dissolves. Not through rebellion, but through neglect. You stop doing hard things because nothing forces you to. You stop honoring your word because there's no immediate consequence. You stop pushing because comfort whispers that tomorrow is always available. And tomorrow becomes the excuse that kills momentum quietly. Comfort doesn't attack your identity directly. It erodes it slowly. You begin to see yourself as someone who avoids discomfort, someone who delays effort, someone who negotiates with resistance instead of meeting it head on. That self-image becomes familiar. Familiar becomes acceptable. Acceptable becomes permanent if left unchallenged. This is why comfort is dangerous. It reshapes who you believe you are capable of being. You stop trusting yourself with difficulty. You stop believing you can endure boredom, strain, or pressure. Not because you can't, but because you haven't practiced. Capability atrophies without use. Strength fades without resistance. Challenge does the opposite. Challenge sharpens you. It gives your days structure and weight. It demands your attention. It forces you to be present. When something is hard, you can't drift. You must engage. And engagement is where identity is forged. Comfort lets you exist. Challenge makes you become. You don't lose self-respect by failing. You lose it by avoiding the attempt. Every time you choose ease, when you know effort is required, something inside you takes note. You feel it as irritation, as restlessness, as quiet disappointment in yourself. That feeling accumulates. It doesn't explode, it corrodes. You start seeking validation to replace what discipline used to give you. Praise, likes, approval. External signals to compensate for internal doubt. But no amount of external reassurance replaces the confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Comfort steals that from you by making promises unnecessary. Look closely at the moments when you feel most dissatisfied. They are rarely moments of struggle. They are moments of stagnation. Moments when you know you are capable of more, but choose less because it's easier. That gap between capacity and action is where self-respect erodes fastest. Comfort tells you to protect yourself from discomfort. Growth tells you to expose yourself to it deliberately. One preserves energy, the other invests it. One keeps you safe, the other makes you strong. Safety feels good in the short term. Strength feels solid in the long term. You were not built to be constantly comfortable. You were built to adapt, to strain, to overcome. When you deny that part of yourself, it doesn't disappear. It turns inward. It becomes frustration, anxiety, and emptiness. That's the cost of avoiding friction. Friction is not punishment, it's information. It tells you where your limits are and how to expand them. Without friction, you never find out what you're capable of. Comfort hides your potential by never asking for it. This is where the confrontation happens. You have to stop pretending comfort is benign. It is shaping you every day. Either into someone disciplined and capable, or someone passive and dependent on ease. There is no middle ground. Neutral doesn't exist here. The cage isn't comfort itself. The cage is the belief that discomfort is the enemy. Once you believe that, you organize your life around avoidance. You optimize for ease. You remove challenge, and in doing so, you remove the very conditions that create meaning. Discomfort is not the opposite of peace. It is often the doorway to it. The peace that comes from knowing you can handle what life throws at you. The peace that comes from self-trust. The peace that comes from earned confidence. When you introduce challenge back into your life, something shifts. You feel resistance, but you also feel alive. You feel tired, but grounded. You feel pressure, but purposeful. That combination is not stress, it's alignment. This is the dangerous idea comfort never wants you to consider. That discomfort might not be the problem, that it might be the missing ingredient, that the very things you avoid are the things that restore your sense of self. Discomfort asks you to show up. Comfort asks you to disappear. The choice is not between pain and peace. It's between erosion and growth, between staying soft and becoming solid, between a life that feels easy and a life that feels earned. This chapter ends where your excuses begin to fail. You can no longer say you don't know why you feel empty. You can no longer say comfort hasn't shaped you. Now you see the cage, and once you see it, you have to decide whether you will keep living inside it or step into the resistance that builds you back into someone you respect. Chapter 6. The discipline you avoid is the life you want. Discipline is the word you flinch at, the word you associate with restriction, punishment, loss of freedom. You imagine rules closing in, spontaneity dying, joy disappearing. But that image was never true. It was taught to you by a culture that profits from your impulsiveness. Discipline was never the cage. Discipline is the key. And the life you keep fantasizing about on your best days is built entirely on the discipline you keep avoiding. Look at how impulse has been running your days. You wake when you feel like it. You work when pressure forces you. You rest when you're overwhelmed, not when you're strategic. Your attention goes wherever it's pulled. Your energy is spent reacting, not directing. That feels free in the moment. No structure, no rules, no friction. But look at the result. Scattered focus, inconsistent effort, a quiet sense that you're never fully in control of yourself. Impulse-driven living feels light, but it's unstable. It hands the steering wheel to mood, craving, distraction. One bad night derails the next day. One dip in motivation collapses momentum. You're constantly restarting, constantly recovering, constantly frustrated with yourself for not being consistent. That's not freedom. That's dependency. You are dependent on feeling good to function. Discipline changes that relationship completely. Discipline does not remove freedom. It relocates it. It moves freedom from the moment to the outcome. Instead of asking what feels good now, discipline asks what builds the life you want later. And later becomes predictable because your actions are no longer random. Structure doesn't suffocate you. It stabilizes you. When your days have intention, you stop wasting energy deciding what to do. You wake knowing where effort belongs. You move with purpose instead of negotiation. Discipline removes chem, and chaos is what exhausts you most. The emptiness you feel is not because you lack opportunity. It's because your effort is unorganized. You work hard sometimes, rest randomly, distract constantly, and hope it balances out. It doesn't. Meaning requires alignment. Alignment between values and actions, between intention and execution. Discipline is how that alignment is created. Think about the moments when you felt most confident, not excited, confident. They came after follow-through, after keeping your word, after doing something hard consistently. Confidence is not given. It's earned through repeated proof that you can trust yourself. Discipline is how you collect that proof daily. You don't need extreme routines. You need reliable ones. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. Discipline is not intensity, it's commitment. Showing up even when the energy is low, even when no one is watching, especially then. Impulse tells you to wait until you feel ready. Discipline tells you to begin and let readiness follow. Impulse tells you to protect comfort. Discipline tells you to invest effort. One keeps you safe and small. The other builds capacity. When you avoid discipline, you avoid responsibility for your own direction. And without responsibility, emptiness grows. Because deep down, you know your life is being shaped by default, not by design. Discipline is design. It is choosing what matters in advance and honoring that choice when emotions fluctuate. This is where liberation begins, not in doing whatever you want, but in wanting what you've chosen. Discipline aligns desire with direction. Over time, effort becomes identity. You stop forcing yourself. You become someone who does what they said they would do. The fear is that discipline will make life rigid. The truth is, it makes life lighter. When your priorities are clear, distractions lose power. When your standards are defined, excuses weaken. You gain time because you stop wasting it. You gain energy because you stop scattering it. Emptiness fades when your days carry weight. When each day asks something of you and gives something back. Not pleasure, progress, self-respect, quiet pride. These are stable emotions. They don't spike and crash. They accumulate. Discipline is how you reclaim authority over yourself. It's how you stop outsourcing your life to mood, convenience, and chance. It's how you build a structure strong enough to hold ambition without collapsing. You don't need to become someone else. You need to organize the person you already are. Discipline is not about adding pressure. It's about removing friction caused by disorder. This chapter marks the shift. You stop diagnosing the emptiness and start building the solution. Effort with intention, structure with purpose, discipline with belief in your capacity to rise. The life you want is not waiting for motivation. It's waiting for discipline. Chapter 7. Reclaiming your days one decision at a time. Your life is not changed in breakthroughs. It is changed in morning ones, in small decisions made when no one is watching. In moments so ordinary they feel meaningless. That's where control was lost, and that's where it returns. Not dramatically, gradually, quietly. One decision at a time. Most days begin reactively. You wake up already behind, phone first. Mind flooded before your feet hit the floor. You inherit the noise of the world before you choose a direction. The day starts running you before you ever touch it. That pattern feels normal because it's common, but common is not healthy. Reactive mornings set the tone for reactive lives. Deliberate mornings do the opposite. They create a small pocket of authority. You decide how the day begins instead of accepting whatever demands your attention first. Even 5 minutes of intention shifts your posture. You're no longer chasing the day. You're meeting it. This is not about perfect routines. It's about awareness. About noticing how quickly you give your attention away. About realizing that attention is your most valuable resource because it shapes everything else. Where attention goes, identity follows. Each decision you make is a vote, not for success or failure, but for meaning or emptiness. Snoozing the alarm again is a vote. Scrolling instead of stretching is a vote. Skipping the hard task you promised yourself is a vote. These votes don't feel heavy in isolation, but they accumulate, and eventually they decide who you become. The same is true in the other direction. Drinking water instead of reaching for stimulation. Writing one page. Training for 10 minutes. Saying no to one distraction. These are small votes, but they compound. They restore trust between you and yourself. Evenings matter just as much. Most nights are not restful. They're anesthetic. You collapse into distraction because the day drained you. But the day drained you because it was unstructured, and the cycle repeats. Intentional shutdowns break that loop. You choose how the day ends instead of numbing yourself until sleep takes over. An intentional evening doesn't mean productivity. It means closure, reflection, preparation. You review what mattered. You decide what tomorrow demands. You create space instead of filling it automatically. That space is where clarity grows. Control doesn't return as confidence. It returns as calm, as fewer regrets, as less internal negotiation. You start trusting that your future self will follow through because your present self keeps showing up. This is how identity level change begins, not with motivation, but with reliability. You become someone who does small things consistently, someone who doesn't need drama to act, someone who understands that discipline is built in boring moments. You won't reclaim every day perfectly. That's not the goal. The goal is trend, not flawlessness. Direction, not intensity. Each day you choose intention over reaction, the emptiness loosens its grip. Your life is not out of control. It's just been unattended. Start attending to it, one decision at a time. Chapter 8, Identity is built, not found. You've been told to find yourself as if who you are is hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. As if clarity will arrive one day and suddenly explain everything. That idea sounds comforting, but it keeps you passive. It tells you to wait instead of build, to search instead of act. And while you're waiting, life keeps shaping you anyway. Identity is never found. It is forged. You are not empty because you don't know who you are. You feel empty because you haven't been actively becoming anyone. Identity is not a personality trait. It's a pattern of behavior repeated long enough to feel true. Weakness and strength are not labels. They are habits in motion. What you do consistently becomes what you believe about yourself. When you say you feel lost, what you really mean is that your actions don't align with a version of yourself you respect. That disconnect creates confusion. You look inward for answers when the real answers are created outward through effort, repetition, and choice. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. The myth of finding yourself keeps people stuck in thought, overanalyzing, journaling endlessly, waiting for certainty. But certainty is built, not discovered. It's built through showing up when it's uncomfortable, through keeping promises when motivation fades, through doing the work before you feel like the person who does the work. You are not broken, you are unfinished. And unfinished things don't need fixing. They need construction. That's a critical distinction. Broken implies damage, unfinished implies potential. The difference between the two is effort applied over time. Every disciplined action sends a message inward. It says, you can trust me. Every avoided action sends the opposite message. Over time, those messages become identity. You don't wake up confident. You earn confidence by doing what you said you would do yesterday. You don't find discipline. You practice it until it becomes familiar. This is why identity shifts feel slow at first. You're rewriting internal evidence. Years of inconsistency don't disappear after a week of effort, but each day you follow through, you add weight to a new story. Eventually, the old story loses credibility. Behavior leads belief, not the other way around. You don't act because you believe. You believe because you've acted enough times to make it undeniable. This is where people get stuck. They wait to feel different before doing different. That wait never ends. Strength is not something you feel. It's something you demonstrate. And every demonstration, no matter how small, reinforces a stronger self-image. Weakness is not a flaw in your character. It's the absence of practiced resistance. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. You need consistency. Identity is built quietly, in early mornings, in finished tasks, in boundaries held, in distractions resisted. No one applauds these moments, but they shape you more than any breakthrough ever could. When you begin acting like the person you want to become, your mind will resist. It will tell you this isn't you, that you're pretending, that you'll fail. That resistance is not a warning. It's a sign you're changing patterns. The mind protects familiarity, not truth. Keep going anyway. Identity lags behind behavior. You may feel like an imposter at first. That's normal. Every strong identity begins as unfamiliar territory. You are stepping into a version of yourself that hasn't been reinforced yet. The more disciplined your actions become, the less you need motivation, the less you need validation. You begin to move from internal stability instead of external reassurance. You stop asking, "Who am I?" and start answering through action. This is where emptiness starts to dissolve. Not because life suddenly feels easy, but because it feels coherent. Your actions make sense. Your effort aligns with your values. You feel grounded because you are living in agreement with yourself. You don't need to discover who you are. You need to decide who you're building. Every day gives you raw material, time, energy, attention. What you build with it determines your identity. The question is no longer, "Who am I?" The question is, "Who am I becoming through what I repeatedly do?" Answer that honestly, and you reclaim power. Identity is not a mystery. It's a construction project, and it's already underway, whether you take control of it or not. From here forward, belief will follow behavior. Discipline will become self-respect, and self-respect will replace emptiness with solidity. You are not searching anymore. You are building. Chapter 9, Learning to Sit into the Fire. There comes a moment when running stops working, when distraction loses its power, when comfort can no longer cover the heat rising inside you. This is that moment, the moment you realize the fire you've been avoiding isn't going away. And the truth is simple and confronting. You don't get stronger by escaping the fire. You get stronger by learning how to sit in it. Discomfort has controlled you for years, not because it's unbearable, but because you never stayed long enough to understand it. The instant something felt heavy, awkward, boring, painful, or uncertain, you reach for an exit. Phone, food, noise, sleep, anything to cool the sensation. And every time you escaped, the fire taught you the same lesson. You can't handle this. That lesson became belief. That belief became limitation. But discomfort is not a command, it's a sensation. And sensations lose their power when you stop reacting to them automatically. The fire feels dangerous because you've never stayed still and on it. You assume it will consume you. It won't. It will refine you. Think about how often you quit internally before you quit externally. You're still in the room, still at the desk, still in the relationship, but you've checked out. You endure physically while escaping mentally. That split weakens you. Sitting in the fire means staying whole, staying present, letting discomfort exist without negotiating your way out of it. Pain is not the signal to stop. It's the signal to focus, to narrow attention, to breathe, to observe instead of panic. When you stop labeling discomfort as danger, it changes character. It becomes intensity instead of threat. And intensity is workable. This is where endurance turns into confidence. Not confidence from success, but confidence from survival. From realizing you can feel pressure without breaking, that you can feel boredom without collapsing, that you can feel uncertainty without running. Once you learn that, life loses its leverage over you. Sitting in the fire doesn't mean forcing suffering. It means choosing presence over avoidance. It means staying with the workout when your mind begs for relief, staying with the task when distraction whispers, staying with silence when it exposes uncomfortable truths. You don't fight the fire. You let it burn while you remain steady. At first, this feels unbearable because your nervous system is untrained. You've conditioned it for escape. Of course it protests. Of course it screams. That's not a warning, that's withdrawal. You are withdrawing from avoidance. Each time you stay, something rewires. The fire doesn't shrink, but you grow larger around it. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once dictated your behavior becomes background noise. This is how strength is built. Quietly, repetitively, honestly. You stop asking how long this will last and start asking how steady you can be inside it. That shift changes everything. You move from victim to participant, from reaction to control, from fear to composure. Life doesn't become easier when you sit in the fire. You become harder to shake. Pressure stops feeling personal. Discomfort stops feeling urgent. You gain space between sensation and response. In that space lies choice. This is the moment where emptiness transforms into solidity. When you realize you don't need to feel good to act well, you don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need comfort to be okay. That realization is freedom. Most people never learn this. They spend their lives chasing relief, not resilience. And relief is temporary. Resilience compounds. Once you can sit in the fire, you stop fearing the heat of life. You trust yourself inside it. The fire doesn't destroy you, it strips away illusion. It burns off weakness that was never essential. What remains is calm strength, presence, control. Stay here. This is where you stop running. This is where confidence is forged. Chapter 10, From Numb to Alive. Numbness is not the absence of feeling. It's the result of avoiding feeling for too long. It's what happens when you dull discomfort instead of facing it, when you anesthetize boredom instead of enduring it, when you escape pressure instead of meeting it. Numbness feels safe, but it's not peace. It's a low-grade shutdown. And once you stop running, once you sit in the fire, something unexpected happens. You start to feel again. At first, it's subtle, a sharper awareness in your body, a clearer sense of time passing, a return of emotional texture. You feel tired, but it's a clean tired. You feel challenged, but focused. Discipline begins to reawaken sensations that numbness buried. Not just pain, but clarity. Not just strain, but purpose. Numbness kept you neutral. Alive is not neutral. Alive means feeling the full range. Effort, resistance, satisfaction, frustration, pride. Discipline doesn't make life comfortable, it makes it vivid. When you commit to structure and follow through, your nervous system recalibrates. It stops expecting escape and starts preparing for engagement. You notice it when small wins start to matter again. Finishing what you start. Waking up when you said you would. Holding focus longer than before. These moments don't explode with excitement, but they land solidly. They restore your sense of agency. You're no longer drifting through days. You're participating in them. Sensitivity returns slowly. You feel when you're wasting time. You feel when something matters. You feel the difference between distraction and rest. This sensitivity is not weakness. It's precision. Numbness blurs everything. Aliveness sharpens it. With discipline, your emotions stop controlling your behavior, but they stop being ignored too. You feel frustration and still act. You feel resistance and stay present. That balance brings depth. Life stops being something to get through and starts being something to engage with fully. Purpose doesn't arrive as a lightning bolt. It emerges as alignment. When your effort matches your values, meaning appears quietly. You feel grounded, focused, less scattered, less desperate for stimulation. Your standards rise because you can feel the cost of lowering them again. This is the shift from survival to vitality. Survival numbs. Vitality demands participation. Survival avoids pain. Vitality uses it. Survival shrinks your world. Vitality expands it. Discipline gives you access to this state because it reintroduces consequence and intention into your days. What you do matters again. Time regains weight. Effort leaves a mark. You feel alive because your actions have impact. Hope returns, not as optimism, but as confidence. Confidence that you can feel deeply and still function. That you can face difficulty and not collapse. That you don't need to escape yourself to get through the day. Aliveness doesn't mean constant excitement. It means presence. It means being awake in your own life. Feeling the resistance when it shows up. Feeling satisfaction when you earn it. Feeling direction instead of drift. You are no longer trying to feel better. You are building better days. And better days create a better life. This is not the end of the work. It's the beginning of a higher standard. From here on, numbness is no longer acceptable. You've tasted clarity, you've felt solidity, you know what it costs to go back, and you won't. You are alive again. Chapter 11, Raising Your Internal Standards. Emptiness doesn't always come from doing nothing. Sometimes it comes from asking too little of yourself, from living below your capacity while telling yourself you're being realistic. You drift, not because you're lost, but because nothing inside you is demanding more. Low internal standards create a quiet decay, not dramatic, not visible, but deeply felt. You don't lack potential. You lack expectation, not from others, but from yourself. When no one is watching, when there's no deadline, no pressure, no consequence, what do you require of yourself? That answer explains how you feel about your life. Drifting feels gentle, but it's corrosive. Days pass without weight. Decisions are made for comfort, not alignment. You do enough to get by, but not enough to feel proud. And pride is essential, not ego, earned pride, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't cut corners when you could have. Internal standards are invisible. No one applauds them. No one enforces them. That's why they matter. They reveal who you are when performance isn't required, when discipline isn't forced, when comfort is available. That's where character shows up. Raising your standards doesn't mean becoming harsh. It means becoming honest. Honest about what you're capable of. Honest about where you've been settling. Honest about the gap between what you tolerate and what you respect. Most people compare themselves to others and call that standard. That's a mistake. Comparison distracts you from the only metric that matters. Are you meeting your own potential? External comparison keeps standards unstable. They rise and fall based on who's around. Internal standards stay consistent. They don't care what others are doing. When your internal standards are low, emptiness feels inevitable because nothing is at stake. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is earned. You move through life without resistance, and resistance is what gives actions meaning. Raising standards privately changes everything. You decide what effort looks like, what focus looks like, what follow-through means. You stop asking what's acceptable and start asking what's worthy. That shift is subtle but powerful. This is not about perfection. It's about intention. You don't punish yourself for missing. You recalibrate. You notice where you lowered the bar to avoid discomfort, and you lift it slightly, just enough to require effort again. When standards rise, behavior follows. You don't need motivation. The expectation itself becomes pressure. Not external pressure, but internal gravity. You feel pulled toward alignment instead of pushed by guilt. Meaning grows in proportion to what you demand of yourself. When effort is optional, life feels optional. When effort is expected, life gains structure. Structure creates direction. Direction creates meaning. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to stop negotiating with yourself constantly. Decide what matters. Decide what you will no longer tolerate from yourself. Then act accordingly, quietly, consistently. This is not about becoming rigid. It's about becoming reliable. Reliable to yourself. Reliable in effort. Reliable in standards even when no one sees the work. The moment you raise your internal standards, emptiness begins to retreat because now your days have weight again. Your actions mean something. You are no longer drifting. You are demanding. And when you demand more from yourself, privately and consistently, life responds with depth. Chapter 12, Building a Life That Can Hold You. Habits are where change begins, but they are not where it ends. Habits are bricks. What matters is the structure you're building with them. A few good routines won't save you if the rest of your life is chaotic, directionless, and reactive. Emptiness returns when there is no container strong enough to hold the effort you're making. This is where you stop tweaking behavior and start designing a life. Chaos drains you more than effort ever could. When nothing is organized, everything costs energy. You wake up unsure of the day's purpose. You move between obligations without rhythm. You end nights without closure. Even progress feels fragile because there's nothing supporting it. Control is not about micromanaging every minute. It's about creating a framework that allows you to function without constantly fighting fires. Structure is not stagnation. Structure is support. It's the difference between a river and a flood. Both contain movement, but only one has direction. When your life lacks structure, your energy spills everywhere. When structure exists, energy flows towards something. Start with routines, not as rules, but as anchors. Mornings that orient you, evenings that settle you, weekly rhythms that remind you what matters. These don't restrict freedom, they protect it. They reduce decision fatigue and create consistency. Consistency is what turns effort into identity. Goals matter, but not as fantasies. Goals give shape to effort. They tell your discipline where to point. Without goals, you work hard and still feel lost. With goals, effort accumulates. Goals don't have to be grand, they have to be clear. Something you are moving toward that requires you to grow. Solitude is another pillar most people neglect. Not isolation, but intentional time alone without stimulation. Solitude is where alignment happens, where you check in instead of check out, where you notice drift before it becomes decay. Without solitude, you absorb other people's priorities and mistake them for your own. Contribution is the final stabilizer. When your life includes service beyond yourself, emptiness loses ground. Not performative contribution, but responsibility. Carrying weight, being needed because you've chosen to be useful. Meaning multiplies when effort benefits something larger than comfort. Chaos feels exciting at first. Control feels boring at first. But chaos exhausts you. Control steadies you. The goal is not a rigid life, it's a resilient one. A life that can absorb stress without collapsing. A life with margins, with rhythm, with intention. When structure is absent, you rely on motivation. When structure is present, motivation becomes optional. The system carries you when energy dips. That's what makes progress sustainable. This is how emptiness fades permanently. Not through constant inspiration, but through architecture. You build a life that can hold your ambition without breaking. One that supports effort instead of fighting it. You don't need more intensity, you need containment. And once your life has a container, everything you have been building finally has somewhere to live. Chapter 13. Purpose is forged through responsibility. Purpose is not something you stumble into during a quiet moment. It is not revealed in comfort. It is not found by chasing what excites you or waiting for clarity to arrive. Purpose is forged. It is shaped under pressure. And the pressure that forges it is responsibility. You've been told to follow your passion, but passion is unreliable. It flares and fades. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstances. Responsibility is different. Responsibility anchors you. It gives your days weight. It asks something of you even when you don't feel inspired. And that demand is exactly what emptiness cannot survive. When you carry nothing, you drift. When nothing depends on you, your actions feel optional. Optional effort leads to optional meaning. You float through days without friction, and without friction, nothing sharpens. Responsibility introduces gravity. It pulls you into action whether you feel ready or not. There is dignity in being responsible, not because it's glamorous, but because it requires you to rise above impulse. When something matters beyond your comfort, you show up differently. You organize yourself. You focus. You endure. Responsibility demands competence, and competence builds self-respect. This is why chasing passion often leads nowhere. Passion asks what feels good. Responsibility asks what needs to be done. One centers comfort. The other builds character. You don't find purpose by asking what excites you. You find it by asking what you're willing to carry even when it's heavy. Carrying weight changes you. It pulls you out of yourself. It forces you to develop discipline, patience, and strength. It gives your suffering context. Pain without responsibility feels meaningless. Pain in service of something worthwhile feels honorable. Responsibility doesn't mean taking on everything. It means choosing something specific and committing to it fully. A craft, a body, a family, a mission, a standard. When you choose responsibility, you choose a direction. Direction turns effort into progress. Progress turns effort into meaning. You don't need a grand purpose. You need something real, something that requires consistency, something that would suffer if you didn't show up. That pressure is not a burden, it's a stabilizer. It gives your life structure and relevance. When responsibility enters your life, excuses weaken. You stop asking how you feel and start asking what's required. That shift is powerful. It moves you from self-absorption to self-mastery. You are no longer the center of your universe. The work is. This is where self-respect is rebuilt, not through affirmation, but through contribution. You respect yourself because you're useful, because you're reliable, because you carry what others drop. That respect is quiet and durable. Emptiness cannot coexist with responsibility. When you are needed, you are anchored. When you matter, your days matter. Responsibility gives you a reason to endure discomfort instead of avoiding it. It turns suffering into service. Purpose doesn't make life easy. It makes life worth it. It gives pain a direction. It gives effort a destination. And it gives you a reason to keep going when motivation fades. This is the final shift, from seeking fulfillment to earning meaning, from chasing feeling to carrying weight. When you accept responsibility, emptiness loses its power. You are no longer drifting. You are building. Carry something worthy. Let it shape you. Purpose will follow. Closing chapter. The fullness you earn. You began this journey numb, restless, quietly confused. Life looked fine from the outside, but inside you felt hollow, scattered, disconnected from yourself. You were surviving, not standing. Moving, but not directed. That emptiness wasn't loud, but it was persistent, and it followed you everywhere. You tried to ignore it, distract it, explain it away. But it stayed because it was telling the truth. It was telling you that comfort without meaning was costing you something essential. And now, standing here, you can feel the difference. Not excitement, not hype, something deeper. Solidity. You are awake in your own life again. You didn't escape emptiness by numbing it or denying it. You faced it. You listened. You learned what it was pointing toward. You chose effort over avoidance, structure over chaos, responsibility over drift. That choice didn't change everything overnight, but it changed everything eventually. Because consistency reshapes identity. Repeated discipline rebuilt trust between you and yourself. You no longer feel scattered because your days have intention. You no longer feel weak because you've practiced strength. You no longer feel lost because you're carrying something that matters. The fullness you feel now is not an emotional intensity. It's alignment. Your actions match your values. Your effort matches your capacity. Your standards match your potential. You are no longer asking who you are. You are answering that question daily through behavior. That answer feels calm, grounded, earned. You don't need constant motivation because your life has structure. You don't need constant reassurance because your actions prove who you are becoming. This is what mastery looks like. Not dominance over the world, but authority over yourself. You wake up with clarity. You move with purpose. You rest without guilt because your effort is real. You face discomfort without panic because you trust your ability to endure it. Life still challenges you, but it no longer controls you. You have built a system strong enough to carry pressure without collapsing. You understand now that meaning is not found in pleasure or ease. It's earned through effort aligned with responsibility. You don't chase purpose anymore. You generate it by showing up, by carrying weight, by doing what needs to be done even when no one is watching. That quiet reliability has replaced emptiness with self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of a full life. You are no longer waiting to feel ready. You move, then you feel capable. You are no longer negotiating with yourself constantly. Your standards are clear. Your direction is set. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. And consistency has become your advantage. This is not an ending. It's a standard, a way of living you now protect deliberately. You know how easy it would be to drift again. You also know the Canada, and because you've felt the difference, you choose not to return to numbness. You choose effort. You choose presence. You choose responsibility. The emptiness that once haunted you has been replaced by fullness earned slowly, honestly, without shortcuts. You built this, and because you built it, it lasts. Master yourself. Keep building. This is your life now.